The year is roughly 600 BC. The scene, a heavenly courtroom. The suspect, a figure standing before the throne of God. Most people look at this scene and see the ultimate villain. The Prince of Darkness, the enemy of God, the devil. But here's the thing, detective. If you look at the original police report, the Hebrew text of the Old Testament, that character isn't there. Instead, we find an employee, a member of the divine staff with a specific job description. He's not a rebel. He's not leading a war against heaven. In fact, he reports directly to God. We think we know his name, Satan. But the evidence suggests Satan isn't his name at all. It's his job title. So, who is this guy really? And how did a celestial prosecutor turn into the cosmic monster we fear today? Grab your magnifying glass. We're reopening the file on the Old Testament's most misunderstood character. Welcome back to the precinct. In our last investigation, we cracked the case on Lucifer and discovered that the king of hell was actually a mistranslated Latin adjective describing a Babylonian king. That video ruffled a few feathers. But today we're going deeper. We're going after the big guy. The figure that is actually called Satan in the Bible. Here is the crime. Modern tradition has taken a Hebrew function, a job description, and turned it into a proper name for a specific evil entity. You see, when you open your English Bible to Job chapter 1, it says, Satan came before the Lord. Capitals. Proper noun, like Steve or Dave. But the Hebrew text doesn't say Satan, it says Ha-Satan. Why does that tiny two-letter prefix matter? Because in Hebrew grammar, it changes everything. It changes a name into a title, and once you see the Satan as a title, the entire theology of the Old Testament shifts. We aren't dealing with a cosmic war between good and evil. We're dealing with administration. Let's look at the evidence. To understand this case, you don't need a theology degree. You just need to understand how the word "the" works. In English, we use "the" before titles, but never before proper names. You might say, the doctor is here, or the detective is investigating. But you would never say, the Steve is here, or the Jessica is investigating. If I say the baker, I'm talking about a guy who bakes bread. If I say baker, I'm talking about a guy whose last name is Baker. Hebrew works the same way. The Hebrew prefix ha corresponds to our word the. And here is the smoking gun, detective. In the Hebrew Bible, in almost every single instance where this figure appears in the narrative, Job, Zechariah, the text reads Ha-Satan, the adversary, the accuser. Grammatically, this tells us something crucial. The writers of the Hebrew Bible did not think Satan was this guy's name. They thought it was his function. If they wanted to use it as a name, they would have dropped the ha, but they didn't. So, if it's a title, what does it mean? The root word is Satan, S-T-N. It means to oppose, to obstruct, or to act as an adversary. It's not necessarily evil, it's just oppositional. Think of a prosecuting attorney in a court of law. When he stands up to accuse the defendant, he is acting as an adversary. He is Sataning the defendant. Is he evil? No. He's doing his job. He is part of the justice system. Keep that image in your head. Because when we start looking at the other suspects in the Bible who carry this title, the profile gets very interesting. Let's look at the rap sheet. The word Satan appears quite a few times in the Hebrew Bible, and most of the time it has nothing to do with a devil in a red suit. Exhibit A. King David. In 1 Samuel 29, the Philistine commanders are afraid that David will turn against them in battle. They say, "Don't let him go into battle with us, or he will become a Satan to us." Wait, is David the devil? No, he's just an adversary, a military opponent. Exhibit B, the sons of Zeruiah. King David actually calls his own nephew Satan in 2 Samuel 19. He asks, "What have I to do with you that you should this day be a Satan to me?" They were giving him bad advice. They were being adversarial. But here's the piece of evidence that usually blows this case wide open. Exhibit C, the angel of the Lord. Turn your Bibles to Numbers chapter 22. The story of Balaam and his donkey. Balaam is riding along, disobeying God, and the text says the angel of the Lord, usually understood as a manifestation of God himself, stood in the road to oppose him. The Hebrew text says the angel stood there Satan lo, as a Satan to him. You catching this, detective? The angel of the Lord, a holy divine being, acted as a Satan. If Satan refers exclusively to an evil cosmic entity, then we have a major theological crisis on our hands, because the Bible just called God's angel a Satan. But if Satan is a function, meaning to block or to oppose, then it makes perfect sense. The angel was blocking Balaam's path. He was functioning as an adversary to prevent a crime. So being a Satan isn't about being evil, it's about being an obstacle. Sometimes you need an obstacle to stop you from driving off a cliff. Now that we've established the definition, let's go to the scene of the crime where the Satan, Satan, makes his most famous appearance. The Book of Job. This is where the modern concept of the devil usually gets its DNA. But read the text closely. Job chapter 1, verse 6. One day the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. Notice the company he keeps. He is among the sons of God, the Bene Ha-Elohim. This is the divine council, the heavenly cabinet meeting. God asks him, "Where have you come from?" And Satan answers, "From roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it." This isn't the ruler of hell. This is a field agent, a beat cop patrolling the earth. In the ancient Near East, kings had spies, eyes and ears who would roam the kingdom and report disloyalty back to the throne. That is exactly what Satan is doing here. He says to God, "Job is only loyal because you pay him. Cut off his funds, and he'll curse you." This is crucial. Satan is not attacking God. He is attacking God's assessment of Job. He is the prosecuting attorney arguing that the defendant, Job, is a fraud. And, this is the most important part of the investigation, he asks for permission. "Stretch out your hand and strike everything he has," the Satan challenges. And God says, "Very well, everything he has is in your power." Do you see the chain of command? The Satan cannot touch Job without a warrant signed by the judge. He operates completely under God's authority. He isn't a rival kingdom. He isn't a monster locked in a basement. He is a functionary in God's administration. His job is to quality control the human race, to test the integrity of the believers. It's a dirty job, sure. He's cynical, he's accusatory, he doesn't like humans very much. But in the Hebrew Bible, he is not a fallen angel who was kicked out of heaven. He is still very much employed there. We see this again in Zechariah chapter 3. Satan is standing at the right hand of the high priest to accuse him. Again, courtroom imagery. He is the prosecutor. So if the Old Testament only shows us a loyal opposition, a divine prosecutor, how did we get the red horns and the pitchfork? The shift happens in the intertestamental period, the silent years between the Old and New Testaments. Jewish writers started translating their scriptures into Greek, the Septuagint. When they got to the word Satan, they translated it as diabolos. Diabolos means slanderer or accuser. It's where we get the word devil. But over those few hundred years, things got messy in history. The Jewish people were suffering under foreign empires. They needed an explanation for the radical evil in the world. A simple court prosecutor didn't feel like enough to explain the horrors of Antiochus or Rome. So, the theology evolved. The bureaucratic accuser began to merge with other traditions of fallen angels and cosmic rebels. By the time we get to the New Testament, the falls away. The title becomes a name, the prosecutor becomes the enemy, the employee becomes the rival. But that is a later development. It's a sequel, and you can't judge the original character by what happens in the sequel. So here is the verdict. The Hebrew Satan is not who you think he is. In the Old Testament, he is not an independent agent of chaos. He is a dark, necessary instrument of God's own administration. Why does this matter? Why spend 10 minutes dissecting 2 Hebrew letters? Because when we turn the Satan into an independent monster, we let God off the hook. We create a dualism where God is fighting a war he might lose. But the Hebrew writers were much bolder. They weren't afraid to say that everything, even the testing, even the accusation, even the obstacle in the road, ultimately falls under the sovereignty of the Creator. The text says what it says. Satan, the adversary, the accuser. He's real. He's dangerous. But in the Hebrew Bible, he works for the guy in charge. Case closed. If this investigation opened your eyes, hit that subscribe button, because we've got more cases to crack. Next time, we're investigating the biggest question in theology. Is hell eternal? Or is that another case of mistaken translation? The evidence might surprise you. Until then, keep your eyes open, your Bibles closer, and remember, the truth is in the text, you just have to know where to look.